to say that I'm here because I care for our people, the Palestinians and the Israelis, all the human beings that live in between the river and the sea. And since October, I feel this responsibility to spread a new narrative, a new message. And I believe that we have a unique story somehow, and maybe it will inspire people. We spent 6 months in Germany since October, giving over 100 talks with schools, universities, churches everywhere. And we realized that the Palestinians and the Germans and the Israelis are somehow moved by this talk and by our stories. Somehow it reaches the hearts of everyone. So we're motivated to keep doing it, and this is why we came to the States, and we hope to spread these messages also here. And yeah, we share the stories because we believe that we need to humanize each other, because the system we live under in Israel-Palestine works day and night to dehumanize us on both sides. And by sharing the stories, by showing to us, to each other, that actually it's not that different on the other side. We say similar things on each other in different languages. And by realizing it, I hope somehow to create this opening or this crack and to see beyond the identities. So yeah, Osama will start maybe with the...
Thank you. Yeah. So my story, I don't know, it's usually when I say speak in Israel, I tell them this is the other side of the story. I don't know where people have been on the land and which side, but like I was born in Jerusalem. When I was a kid, I started to hear the first things, the stories from my grandmother about the Nakba, and the Jewish people took their village and destroyed another villages, and she's carrying the key, and she wanted to go back to her village Lifta, which is very close to Silwan, and she always say the Jewish people who took our land, who took our. For me, since I was a kid, I was always terrified from the Jewish people. Who are these people? How they look like? And yeah, after a few years, I started to hear about the rest of my family. Like all of my family are refugees. The only one on the land is my grandfather, because he sneaked back from Jordan after 1967 with his children to Jerusalem. And that's the only things I knew about Jewish people until I started to go to the old city and see, we call it Hart al-Yahud, the Jewish neighborhood, when we go to and see these people, and they always try to take me away from them and walk aside, because that's the stories. They could take the hijab down for some women, the kids, when they play. So yeah, I lived with a lot of fears and separation from the Jewish people. Then my father moved to work in Jericho for a few years, and in Jerusalem there is law for Arabs. If you don't live in Jerusalem for a certain time, Israel can cancel your residency. So you will not be allowed to live in Jerusalem anymore. So we moved to Jericho. We had a house in Jericho before. It's like 30 minutes away. For me, it was easy to go to the small town with a lot of trees and water and springs. And by then, no one educated me, really sit and educate me anything about hate, but only the stories I used to hear. It was for me enough to be afraid of the Jewish people. In Jericho, in the end of 80s, it was the first Intifada time. I started to go to school. On my way to school, there were soldiers on the building in front of the school, always on the roof, but sometimes they come down. Once I passed them and they stopped me and started to talk to me, weird language. I did not understand what they want. For me, they are foreigners. They are Western, they don't speak my language. I was really terrified, and they asked me about colors in my hand, where these colors are from, and I couldn't explain. I was like crying and afraid. Then they left me and I went back home, telling my mother the story, and again she said, Yahud.
How old were you? Sorry.
around 12. Yes. She said Al-Yahud means the Jews, and for me that was another image for the Jewish people, full armed soldier. Every day used to go to school, soldiers in front of the school, any of the students throw stone at their direction. We are on Amman Street, our school in Jericho, and Amman Street is the way to Gesher Olympi, the Olympi Bridge. So a lot of cars used to pass from there, army, and they throw stones at them, and the soldiers target the school by tear gas. And we ran from the other side, the backyard from the school, and carrying onions in our hands as children running home, hiding at home. Then the army commander decided to close our schools because we live under military rules. The army commander can decide everything for Palestinians. Yeah, and it was nice not to go to school. Actually, I was happy not to go. But things did not stop there. Every day in the evening, soldiers used to walk in the streets, like 6 soldiers from this side, so we call them Mushal, Marines style. I don't know what it's called in Hebrew. And every time we used to hear about different group. This is the flag of Golani, this is the flag of Nachal. Like, as kids, we didn't know what is Golani and Nachal, but we copied. And yeah, and youth sometimes throw stones and light tires in the nights, and the soldiers, we used to hear the tear gas and the bullets from my bed, and my father always turned off the lights and closed the windows and said, don't move, because soldiers could enter and search our house. So yeah, and in bed also sometimes we carry onions because you could smell the tear gas. Once they entered to our house and they took my father out by force to raise the graffiti on the walls and to clean the streets after the demonstration. I was 14 by then, and I felt all these fears turned to hate, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something against them. So I started to think with my friends, what is the way to take revenge? So we ended up by collecting shekels from each, like 6 shekels, and we went to buy spray color, and I jumped out of the house after midnight because I was scared from my parents to know that I'm doing this. So yeah, and I jumped out and I wrote outside on the other side of the wall, Free Palestine. In the morning, I came back and saw it in the morning, and I felt so happy. Even though, to be honest with you, I did not know what is Palestine or where is Palestine. I did not fight for Palestine. I did not care about what is Palestine by then. I just want to trigger this full armed soldier who's my enemy somehow. And yeah, and I felt happy, and after we decided to do something bigger, like raising a Palestinian flag, which was not exist until 93, something like this. So we collect shirts and cut it and sew it somehow, and it was a big flag, and we were very happy to put the flag on one of the big trees in the neighborhood. And it was, again, I did not connect to the flag, I did not know the colors of the flag, and the proof the flag was upside down. Yeah. But I wanted to put the flag because I want to trigger this system or this soldier. Even I didn't think about the system, it was personal between me and the soldiers. Yeah, that's how I grew up, with a lot of fears, a lot of hate, a lot of violence in the nights, in the days, house demolitions, sometimes curfews, a few days in the 80s, fears to go to school or to come back, night demonstrations. And I didn't know. And after a while I was jailed for putting flags, and there is no certain law to put someone for the flag by then. There were no law, so there is always a law called administrative detention. Administrative detention means the army commander can take any man or Palestinian man or woman to jail from 1 day up to 3 years without trial. And if we are very lucky, we will go to something called military law, or military court. In the military court, It's not the commander who's deciding for us, the judge, but the judge is another commander here. Yeah. So it's all military system, and in Israeli jail actually I spent 9 months as administrative detention, and I learned everything there. I learned what is Palestine, what is Nakba, what is Palestinians, what the Israelis are. Only my narrative. Yeah, only my narrative. I learned how to hate Jews. I learned how to be violent. My childhood ended there at the age of 14. Yeah, and I started to be a different person. Not only violence with throwing stones, with my sisters, with my mother, with the trees, with the animals, with myself. Yeah, and I ended up throwing stones and trying to have weapons and trying to reach more things to attack more, until I started to hear about Oslo Agreement. And for me it was like, wow, now I see flags everywhere, no one will be arrested, so peace is the way. You know, if I raise the flag by force, it doesn't work, but peace negotiations allow me to raise my flag without the fears. So yeah, I supported this peace agreement, and I joined the Palestinian police for a few years. After a few years, I found out that this peace is not working. Like, there is something missing in this peace, because I started to see that the settlements are growing and the settlers are taking more and more land. And said, how come we're gonna be two states? How come we're gonna have our own state, as long as, you know, they're always eating from our piece of cake, and always the negotiations only about West Bank? And you know, you can't negotiate with someone who says what mine is mine and what yours is negotiable. So yeah, so I left the police and I wanted to do something different, and I was always thinking about resistance, but I couldn't resist, and I didn't fall in this way again until 2001. I was sitting in internet cafe doing some search. After like 20 minutes, I started to hear people shouting outside. I looked and I saw two Palestinian big taxis.
In Jericho?
In Jericho. Two Palestinian big taxis and a lot of Palestinian black women. Everything is black, carrying M16. And I understood that they are special units. I went out and I saw two people bleeding, someone's dying. It was the first time in my life see people are dying. They were just alive there. And I was handcuffed, and they took us after maybe 2 hours to a place called Machane Nipo. It's like an army base next to Jericho. We were sitting in a basketball place for 3 days, handcuffed and blindfold. And there I was full of anger and hate. And I felt like I did not do anything to be threatened this way. And I felt I was less than human. So yes, I went out from there and I decided to continue fighting, and I wasn't really afraid to die, because for me death was the only possible freedom very soon. Yeah, and I did many kinds of fight until 2007. They reached another agreement. Abu Mazen did negotiations, and they forced us to stop doing any form of violence with Israelis, because they want to go back to negotiations. And from there I started to go back to study in the university, to continue education. 2010 I was in Bethlehem. It was snowing and I was looking for a ride to Jericho. In the night, evening, someone passed entering to Bethlehem. He was fighting, and I jumped on him, asking him to take me back to Jericho. He said, I will take you back, but I'm going to a meeting in Bethlehem and we have warm dinner. And I went, and I was so excited about the meeting. He told me he's going to meet peace activists. And I was, what? How peace activists look like? What language they speak? My English is good enough to talk to them. I never met them, and I was so excited to go. And I went with this guy, and when I entered to the room that he mentioned, I saw someone like our brother here sitting with kibbah. And I said, yeah, Ahmed, this is not our room. And he said, of course it is. And I said, Yahud, there are Jews here. He said, yes, some Jews believe in peace. I said, peace? And since we signed for peace, they are taking lands piece by piece. And they even killed their own prime minister because he signed for peace. Don't talk to me about peace. I'm the only one, I'm the right one. My narrative is the only right narrative. I went out smoking like crazy, waiting for him to take me back home. And somehow one of the people, her name is Jaffa Suleimani, she said, of course by then I did not understand anything in Hebrew more than Sa'bat Sur. Yeah. And
Try, like go and stop. Go and stop for anyone that doesn't know. The only two Hebrew words.
yeah, and then I heard someone translating her and she said, I am Jewish, I am Zionist, I believe we have the right to be on our land, I believe we have the right to exist and to protect ourselves, but I believe we don't have any right to occupy other people, to put them under military rule, to use iron fist on them. I don't think it's right to live on sword and ignore other facts. And this was, what? How come there is good Jew on this planet? How come a Jewish person can say these things? All what I knew about Judaism, all what they represent to me is full armed soldier, full armed settler, jailers, guards. That's all what I know about them. Even in 1990, another story just I remember, when Saddam Hussein was shooting Tel Aviv, they gave masks to everyone, but not to the Palestinians. There were no Palestinian Authority by then. Yeah, but they gave masks to all the Israelis, and they told us put tape on the windows. So we taped all the windows, and first day we were sitting inside, and the rockets were falling, and we can't breathe. We are 8 people in the room, so we decided to go to the roof. So I was looking at the rockets falling in Tel Aviv and celebrating, he's killing the Jews for me as a child. And when I went down, my father speaks Hebrew well, and he was always watching Channel 1, Israel. I saw children and elderly and men and women bleeding, and I was wondering, who are they? My father said, they are Israelis. I said, how come? Why they don't have weapons? Why they don't wear uniform? I never imagined that Israeli Jewish people are families and normal like us, in my mind, by then. Yeah, so I went back home with this crack in my mind, like, how come she's recognizing my pain, even if it's not, acceptable for many people, it's right for me, it's still pain. And she recognized my pain, she recognized my existence, she recognized my rights as a human being. And I still refuse her, and refuse her existence. And I felt like there is something not balanced there. Yeah, and since then I started to go more and more to meet Israelis, and I met a lot of Israeli people, and I started to learn about Shabbat dinners, and I was going to Shabbat dinners many times, and I felt very inspired somehow by going and dancing and drinking and eating. And I started to learn Hebrew, and I felt it like built in. Something just came to me. It was there, but I never spoke it. But yeah, and then I started to meet more and more, and to live in their homes, and to be in Pesach nights, and I understood the Israeli people, from the heart. They say, Osama, you don't speak Hebrew, you speak Israeli. It's a different language, And I felt so much pain. Why we don't have the opportunity to meet others this way? Why I always saw these people as enemies, why there is no way to meet as human beings when we are kids, why there is no schools to speak the same language, to meet each other. That's how you end conflicts. By being separated, and the settler who's living 5 meters away from me don't speak my language, I don't speak his language, we go to different schools, different cultures, different religions, different rites. This will not take us to anywhere. Yeah, and I started to do tours and to educate people and to bring Palestinians and Israelis together as much as I can, because I believe conflicts end when people meet, because then you can't dehumanize the others. When you know them, you can't call them animals, you can't call them something else, because you feel them as human beings. Yeah, and I was always inspired by, there's a Palestinian poet, his name is Mahmoud Darwish. He was, before he was expelled from Deir al-Assad, he was in love with a Jewish woman. Her name is Tamar bin Ami. And when he was in Lebanon, she sent him a letter asking when we are going to meet. He said, after a year and the war. She asked, when will the war end? He said, the time we meet. Thank you.
You're going to tell us how you met.
Yeah. So, my story started in a small moshav, not far from Tel Aviv. It's called En Vered. I was born there and raised there. And as a child, I didn't know any Palestinian. And as a teenager, I didn't know any Palestinian. And I started to hear about the Palestinians when I was maybe 10 or 11. It was the second Intifada. And I started to hear on the radio and on TV that there are suicide attacks every week. Another attack. Buses are being exploded. And I couldn't really understand how come someone is exploding himself in order to kill us, the Jews. It didn't make sense. Why would someone do it? And I was very scared as a child, and many times I chose to leave the bus before the destination, especially when I heard Arabic. If I used to hear Arabic, of course we don't know Arabic, they don't teach Arabic in Israeli schools. And yeah, it was like very scary, I remember. And this whole identity, the Palestinian identity, for me, I didn't know any Palestinian, so it was, again, these dangerous people who are trying to kill us. And during the years, I realized maybe what it means to be Israeli through mostly I would say, the National Remembrance Day, where we hold the ceremonies all over the country, in schools, in the village, and we invite the soldiers to participate in the ceremonies. And I remember as a child seeing the soldiers entering my school with full uniform and long weapons, and how much they are being respected and appreciated by the teachers. And they were the heroes. They sacrificed so we can live safely. And I started to internalize the idea that one day when I will become 18 years old, I will be a soldier like anyone else. All my family were soldiers, or my village, or my school. Like, I didn't have any exception to this rule that at the age of 18 years old, you go to serve in the army to protect your people. And then when I was a teenager, my mom started to take me to her personal ceremony, because her cousin, he was a soldier in Sayeret Matkal, and during his service, he was killed. It was an operation to rescue hostages from Savoy Hotel in Tel Aviv in '75, and he was killed during the operation. And he was like the hero of the family. And I used to go every year to the graveyard to participate in the ceremony. And again, soldiers from Sayeret Matkal are coming to participate, but this time my mom is the one who is giving them love and respect. And I remember as a teenager, I started to have this motivation to go and serve in the same unit like the cousin of my mom who was killed. Later on, I realized that my father used to serve in the same unit, and for me, it started to solidify as my dream. Like I want to be a soldier in this unit. At the age of 17, we traveled with the schools to Poland to see the death camps, to learn about the Holocaust. And I remember it was a very intense experience for me, and very nationalistic also. Like I remember many Israeli flags all over the death camps, and the conclusion for me and for most of the students was that we cannot really trust anyone to protect us because of the history, and we have to do it ourselves. And if we will not go to serve in the army the next year, as a collective, history might repeat itself. This was the message that I took. And I came back to the land, and I joined this group that prepares you to the army service like many other Israelis. And I was very motivated to go and sacrifice for the collective, for my people, because I was convinced that this way is the only way that we can live safely in our homeland. Again, until this age, 18 years old, I don't know any Palestinian. I knew like Arab Israelis, this is how we call them, who live in the nearby village in Tira, so the guy who used to sell hummus, or the guy who used to fix the car of my father, or the women who used to clean our house. But for me, again, they were Arab Israelis, they were not Palestinians. And at the age of 18, I was recruited first to pilot course. I served for 1 year in pilot course, and after 1 year, thanks God, they moved me to Sayeret Matkal. And the reactions from all my family, all my friends were so supportive that I was convinced I'm doing the most important thing I can do in my life. By going to serve in this unit, by sacrificing, by putting a lot of effort to go to this place. And after 2 years of trainings in this unit, my team of 15 soldiers were taken to a Palestinian village, Takoa. It's next to, south of Bethlehem. And it was the middle of the night. It was actually the first time I crossed the wall, because my father always used to tell me that there is occupation in the West Bank, and there are settlers, and it's dangerous for us. And he used to tell me you shouldn't go there, actually. And the first time, at the age of 20 years old, middle of the night, we crossed the village by foot, full armed soldiers. And when we reached the center of the village, the commander came to me and to another friend, Nevo, and he asked us to take the shock grenades and to throw them into one of the yards. And I remember myself not thinking about anything. Like I was trained to follow orders, and this is exactly what I did. I took the grenade, I threw it, there was a big boom, then silence again, middle of the night, everyone sleeping. And on the way back to the base, Nevo, the other soldier, called me, and he said, Rotem, I think we shouldn't do such things. Like, there was no immediate danger, there was no reason to do so. And I remember myself like a bit surprised, like how come I didn't think about it myself? And then suddenly the commander came, he heard us talking about it, and he said, guys, you're soldiers, you do what you're told to do, and this is the end of the conversation, you're not allowed to speak about it anymore. And because we were good soldiers and we wanted to stay in this unit, because for 2 years we put a lot of effort to finish this training, we didn't speak about it anymore, but somehow it stayed here at the back of my mind this night. I realized that something, I'm not aligned with what we've done. Like something wasn't right for me. But I didn't have the courage to actually speak about it. A year later, I was released from the army after 3 years of mandatory service. And luckily, these years were relatively quiet. I didn't have to shoot or to fight anyone. And I wasn't traumatized from the service. But I was very much programmed to be the best soldier. And I felt that I want to start to ask questions. I want to start to reflect about things. And I realized that it will be difficult to do this process of reflection on the land in Israel, because there is a taboo in Israel about the army. It's the most moral army, and when you start to ask questions, people might attack you. And I realized that I want to get out of the land for some time to do this process of self-reflecting, and also to let go of this mindset of a soldier. Like for 3 years I was programmed somehow, and I felt I want to go back to like before somehow, or not before, but to free my mind from this experience somehow. And I use my privileged passport because we Israelis, we can travel quite freely compared to the Palestinians. And I traveled around the world for a year, and after a year I came back to start medical school in Ben Gurion University in Be'er Sheva. And just before I was starting medical school, I met a friend who told me that he's going to participate in a dialogue program in Germany with a group of Palestinians from the West Bank. And I was very excited because I've never imagined that it is possible actually to meet Palestinians from the West Bank. All my life I was told that it's dangerous to go there, you shouldn't cross the wall. But then there is an opportunity to go to Germany. And I decided to join, mostly again because of maybe this night 2 years earlier, which somehow I felt that I was the one who was violent. And it contradicted the story that I used to hear since a very young age, that they are the violent ones and we are protecting ourselves. I felt that I was the violent, and I had many questions, and I wanted to meet them to realize why they hate us so much. What's the story? And 11 years ago in Germany, I met a group of 20 Palestinians. Many of them were born and raised in refugee camps all over the West Bank, in Jenin, Bethlehem, Ramallah, Nablus. And they told me a completely new story that I've never heard before. They shared that in 1948, when the Jewish state was established, their grandparents actually, were kicked out from their villages, and they moved or ran away to these refugee camps in the West Bank. But originally their villages were where I live, in 48, inside Israel. And they call this whole thing Nakba, this whole event, historical event. And I was surprised because I've never heard this name before, Nakba. It was the first time I hear this word. And they told me that Nakba, it means catastrophe in Arabic. And during 48, during the Nakba, 400 villages were destroyed completely. And 2/3 of the Palestinian population were expelled from their homes to refugee camps in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria, and Jordan. And that many Jewish refugees came and took over the homes that were not destroyed. And at the beginning it was difficult to believe because it didn't make sense. Why did I have to go all the way to Germany at the age of 23 to learn about this narrative? I live on this land. but how come I didn't hear these words before, like refugee camps, Nakba? It was completely new for me. And I started to read about the Nakba. And very early I realized that there is a law in Israel that prohibits schools from teaching or even mentioning this word. And this is why it's the first time I hear the word in Germany. And what was most very painful for me to realize was the fact that we Israelis, Jewish Israelis, we celebrate our independence exactly the same day the Palestinians mourn their catastrophe, their Nakba. And the Palestinians there in Germany, they told me, you know, we live next to you, we see how you celebrate this day with parties and music and firework and barbecue. And for us, it's as if you celebrate our catastrophe. This is how we feel. And it was very painful and to realize this. And I went back to the land and I was trying to share this experience, what I've been through in Germany, with my family, with my friends. And it was very, very painful to realize that most of the people were not willing to discuss this topic. They became very defensive. They were very intimidated by this narrative. And I felt alone somehow. I felt as if my support system, my community is not there to hold me. Yeah, it was difficult. And I was looking for new people who can support me. Okay, I can talk to, share my feelings, my understanding. Started to go to peace workshops, peace demonstrations to get to know activists, Israelis and Palestinians, who understand that the first step forward is recognition and acknowledgement. And as long as we ignore the identity, the narrative, the catastrophe of the other side, we cannot move forward. And at some point I met Palestinian activists from a Palestinian town called Bet Jala in the West Bank, and I decided to move to live with them, which was for my family, my friends, like as if I lost my mind. Like they were very scared that something will happen to me, that it's dangerous. But for me, first I wanted to improve my Arabic. I was started to learn Arabic, and I felt like in Israel it's very difficult to study Arabic because the Palestinians or the Arab Israelis, they know Hebrew and they immediately switch to Hebrew. So I felt I need to go to a place where they don't speak Hebrew. And second, I wanted to somehow to show people that it's not as dangerous as we think it is. Like, there are human beings in the end of the day there, and I felt that if I will recognize their narrative, their pain, they will accept me. And this is actually what happened. And I moved to this village. I crossed the wall, but this time not as a soldier with a weapon, but as a human being who was just interested to get to know his neighbors, their language, their culture. I felt that I was ignorant about them. I didn't know anything about them, actually. And after a few months in this village, my Arabic started to get better, and I started to understand Arabic, and I didn't have to go down off the bus anymore when I heard Arabic, because I could understand they are not planning to attack me. It's just about where we'll go to get falafel. And I started to realize how much I was moved by fear, like my reactions, like we Israelis, like this language, this culture, it's so much deep, the fear, and with every week and every word that I learned and every new friendship that I've done, I started to feel more safe and more at home. And suddenly there was a community around me of Palestinians, and I could be maybe the only Israeli in the room. They were speaking Arabic, and I felt as if I'm here. And it changed my whole perspective about the conflict and how we can solve it and what is necessary to happen. And it gave me first a lot of hope and a lot of confidence. And I wanted to somehow share this experience with my people, because it was so moving to feel safe in these spaces. And I started to write on social media and to look for ways to spread my understanding and my experience. That basically these walls don't protect us. Like somehow I was on the other side of the wall in a Palestinian village, and I felt even more safe than before. And I think 7th of October is a great example why walls will never guarantee safety for us, the Israelis. I think we should somehow change strategy. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage, to get out of the comfort zone. But I believe that what we need now is to build trust. And in order to build trust, we need to get to know each other. It's not an easy process, but it's possible. I lived it, and I hope that it inspires you somehow, it gives you hope, and I hope that we will somehow find ways to unite and to spread a new narrative of together. Because for me, I'm here because I care for all the people the same way. I stopped seeing people as like Israelis and Palestinians. For me, it's all human beings, and I believe that only once we really feel it, that we are all human beings, then we will see the change. So thank you for coming and listening. Okay, so we met, I think, 6 years ago. I joined the Combatants for Peace. I started to give talks through Combatants for Peace, and I was told that my partner for the first talk is Osama, and because he cannot come with his car from Jericho, because Palestinians cannot drive their cars in Israel, so he took the bus from Jericho to Tel Aviv, and I met him in Tel Aviv, and we drove together to this meeting. And the way back, the car was broken, and we had to push it.
That's why he invited the Arab.
But since then we give talks for 6 years, but it wasn't as intense as it is now. We gave every few months a talk with mechinot, pre-military groups, or foreign groups who come, or Palestinian groups sometimes. But since October, we feel urgency, so we spent, like I mentioned, many months in Germany, and it became a very intimate relationship. Sometimes we sleep in the same room, sometimes in the same bed.
No walls.
No walls. We don't believe in walls. This is how we met.
But he keep reminding me that my share is only 20% of the
I was going to ask you if you had been back home, both of your homes. Have you?
Yeah, we went back in
End of February.
March, the beginning of March and February. We stayed there 3 months, and to be honest, I was feeling a lot of pain there, and I did not meet anyone who's interested to hear anything. Everyone is close. Even my family in Jordan, I always tell them about what we are doing. No one wants to meet me even. So we went back. It was painful. I was afraid to go back, but I went and it was peaceful. To go to pass the borders. But again, it's just being there. I feel very helpless, useless. I am controlled. If I want to go, like I live in Jericho. This is another part of my story. So, in the last 7 years, I understood somehow that peace is not a political agreement only. You know, there are many ways to reach peace, and the first thing you need to find peace inside you before we talk about peace. And all this journey and all this, let's say, spiritual, humanitarian, many kind of healing journeys I did with Israelis. And I healed together with them, and we cried together, and we hugged each other, and I feel them as brothers and sisters, and it bothers me more that this system is preventing me in this hard time even to go to visit them, or to hug them, or to be with them. Even, like Maoz, he's my friend, and his family were killed. I couldn't meet him. I couldn't give him a hug as a friend. So it was very difficult for me, and we decided to come back, and we decided to do this work by ourselves, not to be limited by any organization's boundaries, because we want to tell people what they have to hear, not what they want to hear.
How do you see the future? Like doing this work? How can you maintain doing this work? And what would be the best scenario? And I was teaching at Yad V'Yad. I gave several, and after teaching there, I actually was very, very disappointed. Because that's not Arab and Israelis that learn together, and this is the high school, and so
it's a bilingual school.
Bilingual, yeah. So what? And if in there we cannot see peace because it's very hard to celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut and the Nakba and in the same day. So how can we really make a difference since we are so few that see the human in all of us?
For me, one thing that comes up is that it's so difficult to hold these contradictions like independence and catastrophe at the same day, because mostly the oppression is still happening. I think once the oppression will end, and once people will be equal by the system, it will be easier to hold these narratives. They are contradict, but it's so triggering because we are still not equal. And some people feel that they are not part. I believe, again, there are many ways to reach peace. I'm not a politician. I'm not here to tell you this is the right solution, that is the right solution. There are many solutions. For me, it's not about choosing one solution. It's about the core issues, which are equality. Like, we will not have peace as long as there is no equality. Freedom, I think everyone, like people who don't feel free, they will keep fighting for their freedom. So I think these two things have to be part of any solution. And once we have equality and freedom, we will also have safety, because people will stop fighting. And how to reach it? There are many ways. I'm not trying to promote one political solution. I'm trying to build a grassroots movement of people who are united from both sides, who believe that we can live together on the same land and who are willing to work for it. And how it will unfold, I don't know. There are many scenarios, many ways. I hope it will not escalate more, because it might escalate much more. And it's very scary actually to imagine what might happen. And yeah, we are here like because we want to stop it. We want to stop it as soon as possible. We believe it's urgent. Like when you are on the land, you feel like it might explode any second. Like really, the amount of weapons now, it's unprecedented. Like it wasn't this way. Like you see so much weapons in the streets, and no one trusts no one. So sometimes you hear about someone shot someone mistakenly, like they thought he was a terrorist, they thought he was just people shooting each other because they are scared, they don't feel safe. And yeah, I think what is necessary now is to put as much pressure as possible to stop this escalation, and then to see how we can move forward to reach equality, freedom, and safety forward.
Thank you for sharing your personal stories. They're very, very touching. So I completely support your idea of bringing the people together from the perspective that one need to know each other to get to a place where they can recognize both narratives. The question is, how do you see that being done on a larger scale, where it can actually make a bigger impact and would potentially lead to, you know, the future that I think many of us share here, where those two people live together on the same land?
I think the easiest way is to make a new system that serves everyone. When the system starts to serve everyone, I think conflicts melt slowly, and this is not something that I want to invent. We have 2 million Palestinians. They did not come from another planet. They are our cousins, our brothers and sisters living inside Israel. And these people don't have rockets, don't have M16, they don't do like the Gaza, or for example, or like Jenin refugee camp. Why there is different? They are the same people because the rights are different. Because when you give people rights, when you give people normal, good life, when they have something to lose, no one will go to fight and kill himself and kill his family. But that's what I am trying to tell people. I know what's going on, and I was part of this. We Palestinians, I grew up throwing stones. My kid grew up in a peaceful period. He doesn't know how to throw stones. He knows how to play computer and video games. Yeah. Now the new generations, every time there's Israeli army in our city, and they kill this and they kill that, and that makes these kids who are 18 years old idols for the new generations. So when I grew up in an environment as my childhood, when there is no army in the street, we used to split to two groups. One is carrying a piece of wood, and the other is throwing stones at them. Yeah. If we grow up in Switzerland, we will not act like this because life is different.
Mm-hmm.
So by making people's life different, by giving them opportunities to upgrade and to live, instead of going now to Jordan Valley and demolish most of the Bedouin people houses and create another 10,000 fighters or 10,000 whatever you want to call them, terrorists or whatever, we spend millions of dollars in security in Jordan Valley, South Hebron, here, there. If we spend half of this amount in bringing people together, making life of people better, we are not fighting over two truths, you know? Like they tell me, who was here first, the Jews or the Muslims? It's mine, it's yours. I said when I was 30 years old, I was shocked to find out my great-grandmother is called Sarah Mizrahi. So she's Jewish. So I don't know who was here before, but I know most of South Hebron Bedouins, yeah? They still carry their Jewish family names until today. like Mahamre, who the one who's making the khamr, the wine, alcohol, who convert to Islam mostly during the Ottoman time, period. So I think the system discriminating us and making us really separated and enemies. As long as I always say this to my friends, as long as the settler who's next to me, yeah, and some of them, even my Hebrew is better than their Hebrew. They just make aliyah, yeah, and they have more rights than me. The minute they enter, I will keep resisting. It's not about Jews or Muslims or Jewish state or whatever. It's about rights. How come my son or my daughter still can't go to Jerusalem? They still don't know what is Jerusalem, and they are finishing high school, and it's 20 minutes from my house, my childhood house, my father, you know? So I think by giving people rights, by changing the system from serving one race or one nation and taking rights from the other nation, this will never be solved. And we have 2 million Arabs, Palestinians who are living inside Israel, and it's a big example that when we give them some rights, it's possible to live. And I think the education system has to be changed. Imagine I grew up in the same school studying with Chaim, my best friend, and we speak the same language, and we go to play basketball together, and we do this. Like, we will never be enemies. One of my friends who was wanted and terrorist, he lives in Brookline now, in a Jewish Orthodox building. And I said, you came from Palestine to live here? He said, yeah, here I feel equal. You know? So I think equality is solution. When the system works for everyone, everyone will serve the country. I said this before. If I felt the system and included me, I will go to Tzahal and not will go throw stones.
So my grandfather's a Palestinian Christian from Ramallah. He left in '49. And in my experience, obviously in Brookline has been difficult, challenging, but I've tried to find my place in activism in this community and the broader communities. My kids have had a real struggle, also kind of trying to understand where they fit. My son is at university. So I'm curious, I think that when I visualize diaspora of Palestinians, it's just all these, we're everywhere, yeah, and some speak Arabic, some are very far removed, no connection, no intimacy, and it's nobody's fault, yeah, well, I mean, in fairness, it is nobody's fault, but, so how have your, Osama, and I suppose for both of you, how have your interactions been with diaspora Palestinians? What have you noticed is most useful, is helping other Palestinians around the world to cope and to feel kind of helpful? And how do we talk to our children about what's happening in some kind of hopeful way?
So, actually it's funny because it's always easier for me to speak to Palestinians and for Osama to speak with Jews. So, like one time in Berlin, my flight was late and he had to do the event himself. And there were Palestinians there attacking him. and he told me like, man, I cannot do it without you, and they are Palestinian. I need you to... I think, for my experience in Germany, now for me it's first time here in the States, so I still don't know how it could be here, but in Germany, many times like they come here with the huttam, with the kafia, and you see that they are charged. They come sometimes even to attack you, you know, they come to sabotage the event. But once they hear the story, and they hear the recognition and the acknowledgement of their catastrophe, and we talk about equality and about the need to create a new system that serves everyone. Somehow, in 90% of the cases, the end of the event, they come and hug us. Really. And yeah, I think it's a lot about the humanization, to meet as humans and to share like openly from the heart the experience and to recognize each other. And sometimes it's not happening. Sometimes like if the guy just lost 60 members of his family in Gaza, which we met in Germany. So it's more difficult sometimes. So they will not hug me, but they will just make me like this with the like thanks. But it's also something like to meet. For many of them, they've never met Israeli. They've never met a Jewish person. As Osama said, like they just left Gaza now, and for them, the Jews are the soldiers. It's a nation of soldiers. So it's also very difficult sometimes for them to like make this switch. Like, wait, this is the Israeli, like he's just sitting in front of me now. This is the one who just killed half of my family. So it's not easy, but like we have great experience, and yeah, I feel motivated that it's possible actually.
For me, I understand the anger and understand the pain of both sides, actually. I am not in competition who's more victim than the other, because this circle will never end and we have been in it since ever. I am for recognizing the pain and the trauma of each other by, like if I expect from everyone to recognize my pain and I never seen their pain, this is not fair and they will never see me. People see you the way you see yourself. If you see yourself victim, for me, I always talk about the occupation, but I learned actually with Israelis how to make difference between anger and hate. Yeah, I can be angry at the system, I can resist the system, I criticize the system all the time, I criticize the Palestinians also, even if they are authority without authority, and I criticize my faults and my mistakes and what I have done. For example, a lot of people usually ask me about what I think about 7th of October, which is important. I always say this doesn't start on 7th of October, but in order to understand how to approach to reach people, we need to recognize their pain and their fears. And for the Jewish people, the 7th of October was touching the biggest wound, in their history. It was someone wants to eliminate them, to take them out, and it was very sensitive to them. So for me, what happened 7th of October, it was a war crime. It's not in my Islam name as a Muslim, it's not in my Palestinian name, even not as a fighter. To go and kidnap kids and women from their homes, even the rules of Islam prevent this. And we should recognize this, and we should say this out loud. We are against killing children, killing innocent women, not only on our side, also on the other side. And again, we need also to understand it doesn't justify all the war crimes happening in Gaza, but we need to take responsibility at least for something. And I think what happened 7th of October, we can find 2,000 reasons for this now and it's all makes sense. But when I'm talking to people pain, I have to recognize their pain and tell them this is not in my name, in order to build or create space where we can talk and we can create this place of connection before correction. We need to connect to each other as a human beings, to recognize the humanity of each other and to recognize the rights and the narratives and the fears and the traumas of each other. And then it's easy to find way to accept each other and to be friends. And I believe this will never happen until we understand, again, the needs of each other. We need to understand that Palestinians want to be free as long as Israelis or Israeli people don't feel safe. Yeah? And the other way around, Israelis will never feel safe as long as Palestinians are not free. So if we want to work, we need to work on both of them together and not just one side. Even though there is a lot of pain and attack, sometimes we need to open our hearts and our minds, and it's painful, but it's the only way to reconnect to each other as human beings.
Do you see a place for the diaspora in that future? I mean, is there? I'm not asking your opinion on right of return, but just
No,
I
we
mean,
can ask. I think a lot of people ask me this. I mean, when I talk about equality and justice for everyone, for the two peoples, everyone can decide where they want to live. I'm not forcing anyone to come, and I'm not preventing anyone to live. And we need to talk about it and find solutions. Maybe some people, like for example, it's a big topic about the Palestinian refugees. For example, my family, they are 99% out of the country. Yeah. Now, if you give them the right to return, I promise you 80% of them will not return. 85 even. Why? Because some of them don't speak Arabic. Some of them already pilots and they have houses and grandchildren and in Jordan and here and there. It's just something in our mind. We are afraid that 7 million Palestinians will come and take that, the fears. But I promise you, from the 7 million Palestinians, maybe 1 million will come back, the people who are living in South Lebanon or something. And where they gonna come back? My grandfather used to have a small room for 12 children and now there are 2,000. They're gonna all come back to live in this room. Sometimes we need to think, beyond the idea, but I believe everyone should have the right to come, visit, and see, because that's what triggers the Palestinians. It's not to go back, live there. They are not allowed to see the history of their fathers, or their grandfathers. It's just, how they say, Haggadot in Hebrew, like stories in their mind about this, and they dream. For example, I will give you, after I left Jerusalem, I was every time going to Bethlehem, looking at the Dome of the Rock from that area. There's a place where you can see it and cry, because I can't. The minute they gave me permit to enter to Jerusalem, I never been in the Dome of the Rock. Yeah. Because there is nostalgic, it's my childhood space. It's not because it's mosque and because it's holy, it's where I used to play as a child. The minute it was available, I went first time, second time, then I started to cut to Tel Aviv straight. Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I see a couple of things. One is the common trauma, multi-generational trauma. And I think, I'm a psychotherapist, I think about that. But anyway, I think this is so different. This is by far the longest war for Israel, by far, And the whole country is experiencing a lot of disruption, pain, all those kind of things that Palestinians have already had a lot. So there's a lot of commonality right now of trauma, right? And there's also, behind that, there's so much in common, I think, between Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians. The language is right to left, and a million things. The food, the language, the style, the warmth, the style, the tent, the open tent, come in, the whole thing about hospitality. There's so many ways in which we're similar, cousins, whatever, and we're both traumatized. I'm not Israeli, I'm a Jew. And is that an opportunity, an opening for real change, not change, but for support for what you guys are doing, for gathering more people together?
First, I think that in the history of human beings, we see the breakthroughs when the violence is on the peak. Because then people are starting to look for, or to dare to look for solutions, to be creative, to challenge their strict perspective. And I feel that it is happening now in Israel, still not enough, but people are starting to realize that this war is not going to guarantee them safety. Maybe the politicians are trying to promise safety, and once we eliminate Hamas, we will be safe. But people realize that if you kill 40,000 people and you leave many, many people homeless and without parents, and these children will probably join Hamas at the end of the day when they will be 18 years old. So there is an opportunity now. People are starting to challenge their perspective. I believe we need external help. I believe as long as the biggest empire keeps sending us weapons and telling us that they will protect us, somehow it allows the Israelis to stay in this old paradigm of weapons will guarantee security, which is for me a complete lie. And I think we come here because we need your support. We need the support of the Americans to push us to the right direction. This current paradigm of unconditional support and take as many weapons as you need, it's just going to create a catastrophe. So it's an opportunity, and we need to use it the right way. And weapons, for me, is not productive. We need support, but in different way.
Can I just say a slogan that captures what you just said? It was the most effective slogan by any, independent social change group was Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and it's friends don't let friends drive drunk, and that's what we're doing. Totally, and it worked. That slogan worked incredibly.
You said that you see some sort of seeds of maybe changes of mentality in Israel towards recognition that this is not winning us a thing. Where do you see that? I'm not questioning. I'd like to believe that that's true. Where do you read that? Where do you see that? On an individual level here and there, or what's the scope of what you see?
First, my parents.
Your parents.
Yeah.
They changed, you think?
My mom was changed, and they for sure not feel safe, and they don't trust the government, and they feel that what is happening is a catastrophe for their safety first. Like they don't feel safe at all, and they start to question things that they didn't dare to question before. Also, a few cousins, friends. Maybe we feel that the terminology or the way Israel is going is actually to the extreme, but I believe normal people who maybe don't dare to speak are starting to ask the questions now, because they don't feel safe and they don't trust the government.
But that's the paradox, isn't it? That so many people so many people, in fact, that were sent there, not to speak of left, don't trust the government, but don't necessarily feel that the war needs to be stopped. That's where I don't find.
True. Again, I feel what is missing now to create the shift is the connection with the Palestinians, because the land is so segregated. They don't have this friend that will come and tell them, hey, I don't want you to be, I want you to stay here, I want to live with you. Because we are so segregated, we don't have this thing. Most of the people, this is unique. So for them, they might not trust the government, but still they don't trust the Palestinians the same way, because they don't know them.
So they don't create, people like you are the rarest of exceptions.
Yeah,
because even somewhat left Israelis don't create opportunity for themselves to meet anybody.
So the new generation, it's more common, like more young people are trying to create
Really?
connections. Yeah, we have this alternative community, around 200 people of Israelis and Palestinians from all over the country, from the West Bank, from inside Israel. The old generation, it's difficult to create this relationships because it's out of the, it's so unique. Like as an Israeli, for you it's normal not to know Palestinians. Like my grandma, she was born in this land. She has never had one Palestinian friend. She died 2 months ago without knowing Palestinians.
Right.
Like people can live their whole lives on this land, separated completely from the other people. And I believe this is what is missing right now. Once we will get to know each other, we will not believe anymore to the propaganda of the government that weapons will guarantee us safety, because this
May I
is safety.
follow up? I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up too much time, but can I follow up with another question? And that is, are you two have opportunities to speak to to Jewish synagogues?
Yeah, next week we will speak in Feud Synagogue in New York.
In New York, nothing here.
Here we are open for invitations. It was like short notice, so we weren't able to organize more. But if you know people or synagogues, anyone who would like to invite us to speak in front of groups, we can come back to Boston.
Yeah, I mean, we.
First of all, thank you very much for sharing your very moving stories. I think it's following some of the lines of the other questions. As you were speaking, I was thinking that the group here that came to listen to you are already, we're actually not that diverse in terms of we're all on the same page. And I was wondering, are all the people that come to hear you are kind of already an audience that's open to this? And then in your response to the previous question, you talked about Palestinians who came to your meetings, and they were, to begin with, they were not with you exactly. They were very suspicious. And I'm wondering if you have similar, like the mirror image of that, of Israelis coming, because when I think about all the Israelis that in the last few months my friends cannot listen to me at all, I'm wondering if they get a chance to hear you, and do you think that you affect them?
So there is usually a lot of Israelis, also Israeli who are living in Germany, Israeli people and Jewish people come to our events. Let's say 80% of them usually come to listen. Sometimes, they don't agree with everything we say, and that's also possible, and that's why we are here, not to agree on everything, but to agree that we are human and we have the right not to agree without killing each other, maybe. That's the most important. So some of them really come to listen, and it's easy because there are 3 kinds of people. They usually come to the talks. Some of them, they don't know anything, and they admit that they don't know, and they come to listen and learn, and that's easy. And some people, they do know facts, and they were on the land, and they were on this side and this side, and it's easy to talk to them. And some people don't know, but they think they know. And that's the most important, difficult thing there is no conversation there. So some of them used to come from outside, 2 minutes. They did not listen to what we say, waiting for something, one thing to say, either Palestinian or Israeli. And they start, no, that's not right. And people raising the Israeli flag over there. And Germans are raising the Israeli flag, calling me anti-Semite. I said, that's your grandfather, not me. I'm sorry. I'm not responsible of your invention. Jews lived with us, with Palestinians since ever, with Arabs since before Zionism. There were no real conflict. My grandfather was married to Jewish women. And he used to tell me how their neighbors used to be Jews and they used to share food with them and these things. Yeah, so of course there are some people they don't want to hear and they are stuck in one place because sometimes sometimes they are good people, just their fears and their traumas, they can't get out of this mindset. My family, most of them, when I talk to them, especially 7th of October, I was very mad and I went to fight with everyone from my family. And everyone is defensive. Like my sister, my 2 sons are in jail, they are doctors and they are 6 months there for nothing. I don't have food in my house. You don't see that? They kill our children every few years in Gaza. Don't you see that? So people, when they block their hearts and start to play the victim side, they are not willing to hear anyone. But yeah, they always come, and actually for me that's good. I want these people to come and to listen because I did not want to listen first time when I was really listening, and that changed my life. And we want to talk to people who don't agree with us and find way together and or trigger them and their narratives, sometimes Israelis and Palestinians. And I like to trigger narratives.
Do you do some of this work in Israel and Palestine, or is it primarily in Germany, the diaspora? And in the diaspora, it's still a little unclear to me how you're hoping to create change. As somebody said, we're already part of this supportive. I mean, I don't know if you're hoping that we'll organize political support through representatives, and we did that. There were some families of hostages who came a few weeks ago. We organized a big event, but also got them to meet with the senators, and the idea was to channel some political pressure. Or is it that the diaspora, you hope some of them might go back and have influence? If you yourselves aren't doing the work in Israel Palestine, I don't know which groups you think are doing good work there. You mentioned Yad Bayad, there's Neve Shalom, there's small things. Now there's Omdim B'Yachad, standing together, that's maybe a bit larger, organizing for coexistence and peace. But which groups do you think are worthwhile supporting that move along the lines that you're advocating?
So first I want to start by, yes, we are doing this in Israel Palestine for sure. We start from our people. We mentioned we talk to pre-army schools. I do a lot of tours for Israelis to take them to West Bank, to show them the situation in Jordan Valley, the illegal outposts. Like there's 2 kinds of settlements. One is a settlement, which is illegal according to the international law, but Israel give it permission. And there are the outposts, which is illegal according to the Israeli law and the international law, but they still have soldiers, they still have water, public transportation, electricity, everything. And the Bedouin community who were expelled from Bir Sabah 75 years ago, they are living somewhere in the middle of nowhere for 50 years in a plastic tents. They don't have water, they don't have electricity. This is not Judaism. Forget now political. This is not Judaism. When I started to learn about Judaism, I find a lot of mercy. And shalom is the word, you use it everywhere, shalom aleichem, and everything you put shalom. And the shalom is the last thing that we are experiencing in our land, not for the Israelis and not for the Palestinians. I never seen armed Jewish people walking in the streets more than in the most safe place for the Jewish people. Yeah, that's the idea. It should be safe place. The girls are going to yoga with yoga mattress and M16. This is not really safe place. And I want it to be safe for all of us. And that's the way to make it safe, by give people rights. As long as this Bedouin don't have any rights, don't blame their children for being violent. They play with the stones all the time. And today, every few days, the settlers who represents you, sir, who represents most of you in their eyes, they go and they take their goats and they beat their parents in front of them, and none of them is arrested. Hawara Bugrum, 300 settlers burned the whole village. No one was arrested. This is the main issue of why we keep fighting each other because one side is above the law, not only the law in Israel, Palestine, some kind of the international law too, and the other side don't have any power. We have corruption, but we don't have power. Really, that's the truth. I want me to lie now. The Palestinian Authority is not the best thing ever, but they are not responsible of the occupation. They are responsible of many other things, and we need to charge them for that. But in order to solve this between my child and the children who are living in Verd Yericho, my kid should study in the same school with them, learning Hebrew and Arabic together. Why there is only 5 schools in whole Israel, even inside Israel? There is only 5 schools for Israelis and Palestinians together. Like Neve Shalom, Yad Biyad, and this. You know why? Because most of the Israelis who go there and meet Palestinians since they are kids and learn Arabic, mostly refuse to go to the army. Yeah, because they've seen the enemy as a human being. So that's why Israel don't really invest in these kind of schools. And that's what we are trying. No one is moving anywhere. The Jewish people will never leave the land. We will never leave the land. Yeah. So we need to make pressure on the, where you ask why we came here, because we believe the international community is supporting our wars, is supporting our conflicts. They are not really making pressure on both of us to find solution. I wish they're gonna boycott the Israelis and the Palestinians and put us all inside the land. No one is moving until we find something. Yeah, but keep supporting us and sacrificing the lives of a lot of Jewish kids. You know, don't. As I told you, I slept at Jewish people's house. Their kids used to come to me from the army. I was cooking there for Shabbat, even though I'm goy. Yeah, I was cooking for Shabbat, and they come after the army to eat from my food, and his M16 is over there. So I understand this boy is a human being, and when I see their mothers and their brothers are crying on internet because they were killed in Gaza to keep Bibi and Ben Gvir on their places, this is painful. Yeah, and that's the same story. If you look at the funerals, if you understand 2 languages, it's the same words. We both are brainwashed the same word. The mother or the father are crying, their hearts are falling pieces, and in order to show power, my brave son who sacrificed his life for his country, he is always Gibor Shinan, you know? These stories, we are everyone, both of us are victims of a system that want to keep control in that area, and we paying the price. I believe only the international community can make pressure on these systems, both systems, to find way, and I believe they can. South Africa, when the international community making pressure, now I don't want to enter if it's apartheid or not apartheid, or because this discussion is endless and it's not important. I'm not trying to search what is the name of this massacre. It's apartheid, or it's genocide, or it's a war crime. No, I am here to tell you that no matter what you call it, human beings are losing their life. And after this war, thousands of soldiers and Gazans will be traumatized for the next 2 generations. And this trauma, we will pay the price of these traumas. And we need to work together to end it now. I'm sure you are all here on the same line, but we are separated. The right wing is united. And if we unite all together, if we understand that our unity can save our peoples, we will make change.
Yes.
Question. Is there a way how we can help and support your work from here in Boston?
Of course, there are many ways I think you can help. I think first, each of us, once we educate ourselves about the situation, once we understand the problem, we should look inside, listen to ourselves and feel it. Feel what is my own way to bring my voice, to support the shift, to help this movement. For us, it's this. For a teacher, it can be education. For an organizer, it can be organizing groups, movement, social media. You can come to the land actually and go to protect like Bedouins or being attacked by settlers every day. Money to peace organizations, money to initiatives that promote coexistence and the shared society. Changing the narrative in America, this narrative about terrorism. I think it doesn't bring us anywhere closer to a solution. And dehumanization of whole people, and like one violence is accepted because it's part of the system, but the other violence is evil and they are terrorists and we have to eliminate and exterminate all of them. Like the narrative is toxic and is dangerous, and yeah, I believe there are many things that we can do from here. And maybe the most important now is to put leverage, to put pressure on the American government to stop it. Because if the American government want to stop it, they can stop it tomorrow. Tomorrow. They can just call Bibi and tell him, stop. Stop, because you don't have any more weapons if you don't stop. And he will stop. I think he didn't try it good enough. I believe that somehow they have interest that we will keep fighting and kill each other because of they sell us weapons, because many reasons. And I believe we should unite first of all to stop the war now, because it's getting to a very dangerous place. And then how to move forward, how to find a solution, it will be easier. But as long as we are on the edge of a regional war, we might regret later that we couldn't stop it. So, yeah, there are many things to do right now, and also from here, from everywhere, basically.
I would love to say for the American Jewish youth, I met a lot of them, and most of the times, you know, they will tell me that I came to the land to serve in the army, I went to Gaza, my friend was killed there, or I was in West Bank and they throw stones at me. And I just, of course, you came as a full armed soldier. What do you expect from, you know, occupation? If you come before, I don't mind if you want to go to the army at the age of 18, but come at the age of 17 and be my guest. Yeah, anywhere, be my guest. Live with Palestinians as American citizen. We don't have problem with Judaism, by the way. I even hate to say Arabs and Jews because of most of the Jews are Arabs. Since Zionists don't want them to see themselves Arabs, they changed because to be Arab was considered as low level. So they refused the name Arab and they turned it something else. But yeah, I invite anyone don't listen to me. Maybe I have my own story, maybe it's my own experience, maybe I'm telling stories just to justify my place or whatever. Come to the land. There is Israeli, like Ayr Amim, Khvat Amim. Khvat Amim is an organization that take American Jews to West Bank and to Palestine, show them what's going on. It's like Taglit, but it's the lefty Taglit. Lefty Taglit. Yeah. And you go with them and you understand there and then educate other people. Again, I'm saying this because we want to find a way for both of us to share the land. And this way is not helping anyone. And I'm telling you more extra thing. As a Palestinian, what's happening today is endangering the future of the Jewish people in the Middle East for the next 100 years. Yeah, it's not saving anyone. And no one will pay the price, only by themselves. No one else will come and fight for them. And we need to understand that we are living between Lebanon and Egypt, and not Eurovision anymore. Yeah? Right. we need to be with the Arab idol maybe, to learn the language of the place we are living in, to integrate to the place we are living in, to be part instead of being the strangers, the people who speak different language. It's Syria, Lebanon, it's Middle East. You know, you choose to be in the Middle East, be part of the Middle East. That's, I think, how it should change. And for me, I don't want to live in a place without the Jewish people, to be honest. All my space, my freedom, I have with Palestinian and Israelis, and I don't see the difference between them. And I don't think that anyone has rights on the land more than Rotem, because the story of 2,000 years we were here, this is not, it's not my story. No one came back after 2,000 years, kick people out and say this land is mine, you know? If it will happen, all the Americans, the natives will kick you out, all of you, and you know, sit by themselves. But now I believe there are few generations, they were born and raised on the land, and for them it's their homeland. You can't tell them it's not your homeland. But it's their homeland, and my son's homeland, and my homeland, and her son's homeland, and not only one person's homeland. Yeah, I think that's the way. And I am sure it's gonna happen. We are not exception. In Europe, they killed each other 2,000 times more than us. In the end, somehow they understood that wars doesn't do anything, so we will. But how many people we will sacrifice until we understand that this is the way?
I'd like to add something here.
As Israeli American.
As a mixed person. Yeah. That we're talking about being human, and it's not just Israelis and Palestinians or Jewish people, Muslim people, Christian people. We're talking about everyone. Like what is happening on that land is a magnification of what is happening here in all places. So when you ask what can we do, there are many very specific things, as they were both answering, but also what can you do as a community? How can this room grow? And how can you all multiply? And what support does everyone need? So that it's not like, again, these separate groups that are all moving in different paces in different ways. Like, how can we kind of ripple this a lot more, you know? And like, will you all see each other again? Or, you know, will you see each other maybe at a protest? Or how can you also become in each other's lives? And that attracts other people to see. Other people then may see another place that they can belong to, because the biggest fear in all of this is loss, you know, the grief of if I don't hold on to this idea, if I don't hold on to, you know, the way I've always been moving because everyone around me has been moving, then who are my people, you know? And it's a very hard, I say this with tears in my throat, it's a very difficult place to be, you know? But maybe there's a way for it to be different, and that's something for you here on the land that you are, to find what that is.
I have to leave, maybe so other people have to leave. I want to thank you from deep in my heart. This is very moving and just a beautiful thing to listen to and experience. I think many of us here are already involved in work and organizations that are working for peace, so protesting and ones. And I'm sure that we'll continue that work. Before I go, I just want to know if there's a way to keep in touch with you.
So there is a QR code for the Instagram page. You will send an email?
Yeah, I'll try to follow up with all the emails that I received, and so we will, I hope also attach the recording and...
So you can scan the QR codes here. There's one on the piano, there's one in the entrance, and then the one on the table here. And there's one QR code with the Instagram link, and the other one is a Venmo. You want to explain?
Exactly. So we are here as individuals. We bought the flight tickets ourselves. We pay for everything ourselves, and we ask from people to help us support and cover the expenses of this tour. So we'll appreciate any amount and any support. And there is a QR code for the Venmo. And there is also PayPal. We will send it maybe through on the email, or cash if you have anything.
So, I've been here for many years and I've met some Palestinians, but unlike you, I have never had Shabbat with a Palestinian, well, I had Ramadan, maybe. This is our Shabbat. So, wouldn't it make sense that everywhere you go, you see community? So, for instance, this is an evening we're together, but after this evening, you inspire, we inspire, inshallah, Bostonian Israelis and Bostonian Palestinians to actually create a community. I know there is, if not now,
That's Jewish American. That's Jewish.
Exactly. So Israelis, I'm just thinking about the idea of because this could make a difference. Right now, everybody in this room is doing something to stop the war, and also to integrate and to create justice. Some from different perspectives, different organizations, and we're busy. I think from what I heard, what is the wonderful thing you said? As long as we don't feel secure, Palestinians won't be free. As long as Palestinians will be free, we won't be secure. But here in Boston, in a microcosm, so imagine every city you go, in Berlin, Hamburg, New York, and something, maybe we teach something to the Israelis in Israel. I don't know. Just I'm inspired by what you do. What do you think about that possibility? And will that make a difference?
I told you, Israelis in Israel, there is big difference between meeting Israelis as from outside as Palestinian or meeting Israelis from inside. When you see their hearts, it's different story. They are not bad people. But again, I feel Palestinians and Israelis, they are occupied by narratives. They are occupied by ideas. They are not willing to give up on their beliefs and to meet each other. We actually meet. We meet a lot. Don't people think that we are living really in... Yes, there is separation where we live and in the system. There's big separation and discrimination. Like for example, since '48, how many Israeli Jewish cities and kibbutzes and mashab and whatever were built? Do you know the number? Since '48. Were built. New
Couple
ones.
of hundred.
Hundreds. More than 50, more than 200.
More than 700.
More than
villages.
200. 700 you said?
700.
Yeah. How many Palestinian new cities were built? Two. One is called Arad, which is inside Israel. They built it to bring all the Bedouins from around Beersheba and to put them in one city. And one is very Ashkenazi city, was built next to Ramallah now. It's called Rawabi. It's more expensive than New York. And I want to go and live there. And because it's business, they allow it to be built, and the settlers are preventing them of reaching water and opening the street, but all this money make it easier. So this system, again, it's not about Israelis and Palestinians. It's about this whole narrative for me. I don't think I have any problem with Judaism. My problem with Zionism. Zionism for me in exclusive. It's not including me in the system. Judaism includes everyone. I saw in Germany on Beit Knesset, like my home is for everyone. And that's what Judaism, as I understand it. It's a home for everyone. And for me, this idea of the American Jew who will be born in the next 10 years will have rights on my land more than me, even though I live there and my children speak Hebrew and I speak Hebrew and I work, this is not fair. This will not lead us to anywhere. We need to understand, we need to create system to serve people and then start to work on bringing people together. Until when we're gonna live in separated cities? You know, this is here with all the problems. For example, you don't see Israeli and Palestinian are fighting in the street because of their nationality. Because everyone, my cousin who came here from Jordan as a refugee, his son is serving in the American army. And I asked him why. He said, because we feel equal. We feel seen here. The government gives us. And that's all what we ask. Equality and justice and freedom for everyone. I don't know why it's very complicated in our country to ask for these things. It's very basic needs for any human being to be peaceful. Otherwise, no one can put me and my family in small places with gate at the entrance of my city, 3 hours to meet 18 years old soldier and ask me to go out and take off my shirt. You know, he's even younger than my daughter. It's not acceptable for any human being, and this will not bring saves to anyone. That's all what I'm trying to say. I know what is the Israelis people. I know it's easy to have peace and to live together. We meet every day. If you go next to Jericho, Al-Muk Junction, Israelis and Palestinians meeting, eating, sitting, talking. Go to the desert, they are hiking together. Go to the Dead Sea, they all sitting together. Go to any beach, Palestinians are workers and they work in the kitchen and they have knives and they have everything and there is no attacks. Only one attack every 10 years, all the news will go there and then the racist settlers will come to take revenge and to make this whole area circle of violence again. That's the problem. Many Jews used to stop in Hawara and buy the meat and the food and the vegetables until today. Even Ariel, the settlement, all of them go to their Harris, for Harris to buy everything. There is no real, again, it's all about politics. When Sharon entered to Aqsa Mosque in 2000, most of the people who were killed, they don't pray. They are not really, if you go now, the Israeli army will go to Aqsa Mosque, all the alcoholic Palestinians who are sitting in Bab al-Amud will run to fight and sacrifice their lives. Not because they are afraid of God or they want to protect the house of God, because this is a sign for existence. This is a sign for we are here and we deserve to be here. And the minute we recognize the right and the existence and the narratives of each other, I think it will be very easy to share the land because Amen. Please.
What I didn't get from your conversation,
Please.
What's your political vision between the Jordan River and the sea? One country or two countries?
So I mentioned that we don't promote one specific solution. For me, today, like after how much 30 years since Oslo, now the number of settlers in the West Bank it grew from 100,000 in '94. Now it's 700,000. Personally, when I try to imagine the government of Israel bringing these 700,000 settlers back to Israel, I envision like Armageddon, like civil war, and I don't think it's even possible to do. I think they will fight for as if for existence, for their existence, the settlers, and by expelling 700,000 people from their homes, we will create another collective trauma, which for me, I think there is a better way. There is a better way because in the end of the day, it's about humanizing each other and finding a way to live together on the same land. I think if we will just start to move forward towards equality and liberation for all, the settlers can live with the Palestinians, and maybe actually we can save lives by trying to imagine a reality of everyone stays in their homes and living under the same system as equals.
So, one state solution.
Maybe.
I believe this is the right thing to happen. Again, for me as Palestinian, I really don't care. Give us one state solution, give us two state solution, give us any solution, just we need the solution. Yes, but for Israelis, there is a lot of difference. I will tell you why. Because Zionism starts with a Jewish state. And Jewish state means Jewish majority. That's why they expelled 2/3 of the population. It's not by chance. Because they wanted to be, they were 30% of the population, and they expelled 70% or 80% of the Palestinians to be majority. And they did that. In the end, to be democracy, also they gave the 2 million Palestinians and 68 rights. So that's how it became democracy. Now to give 5 million Palestinians rights and to be democracy as normal, that endangers the idea of the Jewish state. So for you, as a Jewish state, justice for all, it doesn't work. Because the idea of Zionism, it doesn't have justice for all. It's rights for Jews. So the two-state solution was actually the easiest way for the Jewish state to keep 80%, to keep majority on the 80% of the land and to stay Jewish state. But they destroyed it now, and it's not an option. It's not an option. These settlers are now the army, the biggest positions in the army, they are the settlers. They are the ministers, they are everything. You know, most of the government are settlers and the soldiers.
It's interwoven into the system already.
Yeah.
There's no way to pull things apart at this point.
Yeah, again, any solutions, there are a lot of solutions, but it's not very complicated. I can offer one, for example, which is not my business, but I can offer one. Imagine like EU style, you know, France and Germany, they used to fight for ages. Now they are EU. Everyone is their own country. Palestine is Palestine, West Bank, Gaza. That's Israel. Everyone can live everywhere. If you, as a German, if a German want to live in France, they live in France, they pay taxes to France, they do everything the same way according to the French law, but they want to vote, they go back to their country. Germans don't vote in France. I think everyone should stay on their land, and it's federal country where settlers, if they want to stay, they have to pay taxes to the Palestinian Authority. If I want to live in Tel Aviv, I can, and I pay taxes to Israel. And everyone vote in his country, so this way we can keep Jewish majority inside Israel and Palestinian majority in West Bank. Again, and in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, it will be easier to have bigger solutions. The problem is who's gonna commit to the solutions now? Because every time since Rabin was killed, no one commit to Oslo agreement solutions. Who gonna force the two governments to commit to the solutions and not to break the international law? And when the veto will stand for justice and not for just keep pushing us in circle of violence and violence again. Please.
So, thank you for this. It's amazing, very moving. And I just wanted to say that your solution is actually being promoted by a movement called A Land for All. They've been working on this for almost 15 years.
Two states, one
It's really nice,
homeland,
yeah. And like I highly recommend to Google them, A Land for All, and read their policy numbers. Very good. So, but my question, so I'm a Palestinian citizen of Israel, and I agree with everything you've said. I think that's like, we can be a bridge because I grew up with Jews, and I agree with what you said. Like I have all appreciation to Judaism. I feel more comfortable in synagogues than in mosques. I do have a problem with Zionism, and that's going back to what you said about equality and freedom. And even though I'm a Palestinian citizen of Israel, I don't feel equal. I wasn't able to bury my mother in my hometown because she wasn't Jewish. And I feel that one of our problems, in order to get to the solution is a technicality. is that I feel that my Israeli friends, my Israeli Jewish friends, don't really believe in equality and freedom because they have their privilege. So they have more rights. So in order to get to equality and freedom, they'll have to give up some of their rights. And I don't see an incentive. Like, why would they do that? And I also think that this is like what brought us to October 7th. The fear from the normalization of Saudi, and like, yes, we can make peace with Arabs without taking care of the Palestinian problem, right? So that'll be my question to you. How do you see this shift in the Israeli society towards equality and freedom, and being willing to give up their privilege?
Like, I don't know, but when I look on the history of other places, South Africa, Osama mentioned, people were willing to give up on privileges when there was leverage and pressure from outside, and they realized that the current system doesn't serve them anymore because the world doesn't support the system. So yeah, I believe some of the support is pressure, is making Israelis to realize that this system doesn't work for them as well. Like, yeah, they used to have privileges, but for now it doesn't serve them anymore. Like, they are starting to lose privileges. And again, I'm not about boycotting people, I'm about boycotting a system. Because the current system is against the Jews and the Palestinians. No one is free, and we need to put pressure on the system so people realize that we need to change the system. Now, how to do this external pressure is very important, because some people might understand it as, I don't know, anti-Semitism, or they boycott us. But no, we are not boycotting the Jews, and we are not boycotting the Israelis. For me, it's boycotting a system that discriminates one people over the other. It's not about we're against the Israelis or against anything. We're just trying to show the Israelis a new way, a new direction that will guarantee safety, because only by changing the system we can guarantee safety for the Israelis. The system is the one that endangers the Israelis, actually.
Ask you another question. First of all, also thank you. Like, that this was really good, and thank you for what you said. I think it's so important. I guess my question and my reason for pessimism is, how do we end the Jewish terrorism? Because I feel like the settlers in Israel and so many of the ministers in Israel, it feels like they're sticking like a match into our eyes, into mainstream, or into some, I guess, maybe I live in a bubble and what I think of as mainstream Israeli, and maybe it's because you're preaching to the choir here, right? And I think my reason for pessimism is that I grew up originally in the Upper Galilee. So we used to get the Katyushas and everything, and just like you, I used to not see Lebanon at all as a place. It's actually a beautiful place, right? I thought it was just a place that, that we get bombs from. And it was only, when I came back and, when I was 20 and I stand on the Golan and I say, wow, it's so beautiful, and there's people just like me, just like people, right? But the problem is that when, so long as Jewish Israelis have so much privilege, especially in the settlements, and they're so committed to not ending the war, they're so committed to not returning the hostages alive. We can do whatever we want here, but that doesn't change the mainstream there. And I think I'm pessimistic because I see people that I grew up with that always said, we just need to get out of the settlements and that will bring peace. We have no business being in an occupation. And then post 2005, and Israel pulled out of Gaza. And what they say today is, well, that was a mistake because we got rockets, not peace. And so I think, and the Afro Galilee, that's what they get rockets, they don't get peace, and that's not because of occupying Lebanon. And so it's not that Israelis and Palestinians are in isolation, they're also within a bigger ecosystem, right? And I just wonder, I don't know, like, I think I'm just really pessimistic right now. Or just really feeling hopeless about how to change that when I feel much less kinship with with the Jewish, not only the Jewish settlers, with the BBS, with all the people who are preventing peace. And I don't feel like American pressure is doing much of anything, because then they just have an excuse to say it's all anti-Semitism, and they ignore it because you push somebody to the wall and they just want to punch back.
I'm sorry, I just have to say that the Jordan Valley activists, including looking the occupation in the eye, who defend shepherds, they actually report every day the human rights violations, and as a result, the United States government has imposed sanctions on many settlers' bank accounts. So one could feel hopeless because they go every day, and I can tell you I've gone with them, and you get beaten up and you get arrested and you go back the next day and you get beaten up again. But slowly but surely they're beginning to impose sanctions on more and more settlers. So I think that our trauma, what characterizes trauma, okay, is that sense of helplessness and powerlessness. And I think these two courageous men that are here sitting before us have shown us how you can find power in a situation where you should, and for all intents and purposes, be powerless. And so what I'm saying is what Roby Denlin says, right, from the Parents Circle. She says, we shouldn't import the conflict from Israel to here, but we should export solutions from here.
Thank you, and I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I think that's
Having supported
wonderful, and I would love to see more of what you do. And I would love to hear how, because your positionality is so exceptional. You're the exception in your family. You're the exception in your family. How
We are
do
not
you
exception
become
actually. A lot of people think and feel like us. We just had different journeys that we were lucky to be led to meet each other and to speak each other's languages and to believe in each other's rights, and that's self-work. It's not just being lucky and exception. I don't think we are exception. Most of the people, when they understand and feel peace, I think even the settlers themselves, everyone in his life, Palestinians, Israelis, everyone wants peace. Who wants to fight? Only people who are triggered. How are we gonna stop the terror of the settlers? It's the same thing like how you stop the terror everywhere, by making law working on the terrorists. When they can go and burn, again, Humara and Safa and Turmusaya and another 3 villages, when they burn the Wabshe family, when they burn Muhammad Abu Khdir, when they burn this and that. Ben Gvir himself, he was putting a picture of Baruch Goldstein in his house, you know. If he was Palestinian, Israel will airstrike him immediately if he's putting a picture of, and he's a minister now, you know, and this is Smotrich and this one and this one. These people are above the law. The minute they understand the law works on them, not only the Israeli law, also your law. For example, to America, no matter how peaceful I am, I need a special visa to come to States or to Germany. The Israeli settler, because no matter where the Israeli Jewish live, they have the same rights. In West Bank, in East Jerusalem, next to Gaza, it's not like us, our rights according to where we live. For them, they are full citizens everywhere. So the minute the other countries will tell settler, no, you are not entering our country because you are settling illegally in other people's land, or, you know, either we get divorced or we get married. That's the solution. We have to find out either to take us and give us full rights as citizens like everyone, and understand your question by the Arabs who are, or the Palestinians who are living inside Israel, and I call them Palestinians because since ever Zionism refused to call them Palestinians. Why? Because the Palestinian, they don't want the Palestinian identity to stay in the minds of anyone. That's why most of my Israeli friends, after they finish the army, they go to India, they go to Brazil, they go everywhere, and they learn the culture of the indigenous people everywhere, and they bring it back to us. And they never went to Bethlehem to learn the culture of the indigenous people who are living there, because they are fighting over who's more indigenous than the other, you know? So yeah, I think by making the law, when the law works on Israel, on Palestine, on everyone same way, I believe this is the only solution. As long as it's, you know, these can do whatever they want. I saw a British journalist asking the Israeli spokesperson about Israelis now are in big argument and fight between if it's right to rape Palestinian prisoners or not. Imagine which level we arrive. They are discussing if it's right to rape or not right to rape. This level we arrived. Since when we discuss rape?
They said in primetime television that it should be institutionalized. It's not even like the debate. It should be like a formal policy.
And if you look at the Palestinian prisoners, I will tell you a story. My nephews, when I was in Germany, they never been in jail. They never throw stone in their life because they grew up in this period of Oslo and peace. And one of them just finished medicine, he's a doctor, and the other one is a lawyer, and they're all young. After 7th of October, Israel arrested everyone, even for Facebook posts. Yeah. So this nephew, who I took him with me since he was a kid to build the playgrounds with Israelis, and he's a friend with Yahav, and he's a friend with this and that. He knew many Israelis. Suddenly they came to his house after midnight, break the house, beat him up, his brother, his mother, and take him to jail. And he said every station we get beaten up like animals. In the end, I lost conscious and I heard an Israeli woman crying and screaming at the soldiers to take off the handcuffs because his hands were like blue and like this. And he hadn't done anything. And he went out of jail, he lost 32 kilos. You imagine how much trauma this 24 years old person passed through. His eyes are not the same. Somehow I feel people, not from outside only. His eyes are not the same. He's traumatized, he's afraid, he's broken, he's everything. These are the catastrophes. I used to think this way. I was willing to die in order to hurt and kill the enemy until I met the enemy as a human being. Suddenly the enemy became a human being who's feeling my pain, talking about my rights. And then I released this enemy thing from my head. I think, yeah, we need law to work on everyone, push them and make pressure. And we need to understand, Judaism have nothing to do with occupation. Yeah, occupation can't represent the Jewish people all around the world. Judaism have nothing to do with occupation, and being against occupation has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It's two different stories, you know. Especially for me, I grew up learning about religions, even though I pray in the desert no more than the mosques now. Yeah, I became hippie since I met Israelis.
Happy Mayor.
Yeah. So, oh, I forgot what I wanted to say.
Pray in the desert.
No, this I know. Yeah, anyway, I will come back after.
Maybe a simpler question. Where do you get the best hummus?
The best.
There isn't just one.
You have.
From my mom.
We're in Boston. It's a great chance.
In Boston.
It's a great chance. To be honest, in Berlin, I get the best hummus in the Israeli hummus shop. Hummus. The Lebanese wasn't as
Actually,
perfect.
aren't a traitor. That's the worst.
You see, I said that because she's leaving. That's what I said.
So it's a good time maybe to say just thank you.
Thank you.
A lot to our speakers, of course. Incredible conversation. I don't want them or everybody to become completely dry. Well, I've been recording for 2 hours, 15 minutes. I don't know. It's good that you ate and drank a bit before because you had a long time to stay, and there's more food there. So I just want to let people, continue to mingle, eat, drink, talk, and that you don't feel like you need to just stay there sitting. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to understand it, to answer the question. The best hummus is to invite me and I will make it. Next to barbecue.
What do we do these exchanges that you mentioned? David, do you have interest in joining us on the trip to New York for BB's visit? I probably can. When is it? December 26th or 27th.